Hello, I'm Philippe Sands, and I'm really delighted that you are about to see a film that I was involved in the making of, which is a project I am very attached to. The director of the film is my dear friend David Evans. Some of you will know his work if you've watched Downton Abbey, for example. But the circumstances in which this film came to be made were completely unexpected. In 2010, I received an invitation to give a lecture on the cases that I do on crimes against humanity and genocide, and I traveled to the city of Lviv in Ukraine, also known as Lvov, and Lemberg. And there I discovered the events that caused the deaths of my grandfather's entire family from that region. I started doing more and more research, and I came across a character called Niklas Frank. Niklas Frank is the son of Hans Frank. You're about to meet him in this film. His father was the Governor General of Nazi-occupied Poland. I came to know Niklas. He told me about his father's activities and actions, and I started writing about his father as the fourth character in the book that became East-West Street. And then one day, Niklas said to me, "You know, they're not all like my father. I hate my father. I believe he correctly got the death penalty for his actions in German-occupied Poland as Governor General. Your family is from Lemberg, Lviv. Would you be interested in meeting the son of the governor?" The governor of Lemberg was Otto Wachter, and he was my father's deputy. And amongst the children of high-ranking Nazis, we're sort of all in touch, Niklas said. Perhaps Otto's son Horst would be willing to meet you. That was the end of 2011. And Horst did agree to meet me, and we went down. And the thing that was interesting, as you will see in the film, is that Horst is a very genial person. He is not a Nazi, he is not a racist, he is not an anti-Semite, but, as you will discover, he rather loves his father and believes that his father is a decent man. Horst rather stuck in my imagination, and a year later, in the spring of 2013, I published an article in the Financial Times magazine, a profile of Horst and his feelings of affection for his father and, of course, for his mother, because she plays a big role. The article was published. It got quite big attention, more than I expected. And at some point over the summer, after it came out, my wife and I had a dinner party, and David Evans, my friend from university, and his wife, Abigail, came over. And at the end of the dinner, he turned to my wife and said, "You know, I read Philippe's article in the Financial Times. I think it would make a terrific documentary. Do you think he'd be interested?" We talked about it, and in the autumn of 2013, we decided, putting in our own modest sums of money, to hire a film crew and go off and interview Niklas Frank. And that's more or less where the film begins. We then, amazingly, persuaded friends of ours who are filmmakers in London. They've made films like Brooklyn, which some of you will have seen, to take the project more seriously, and they persuaded the BBC to invest in the film. And so we spent the next year and a half making the film that you are about to see, My Nazi Legacy. It took a completely unexpected direction. We met in London, and in the course of that gathering, the idea came up of making a trip, the three of us, to Ukraine, to Lviv, to see what went on. And you will see some film scenes there which were utterly and completely surprising. The film was finished in early 2015. It opened at the Tribeca Film Festival in New York, and to my astonishment, was actually purchased for broadcast in cinemas in London and various American cities, and it did the festival circuit. 5 years later, I continue to get a very active inbox, letters, comments, invitations. It never occurred to me that a film you make in this way will develop a life of its own. And indeed, it did. There is a scene in the film that you're about to see in which Niklas expresses certain views about Horst. This followed a visit that we made to the Ukraine. Horst was so upset with what Niklas said about him in the film that it catalyzed a question from Horst to me. Philippe, I am not a Nazi. How do I prove that I'm not a Nazi? And as so much in life, one thing led to another. Horst got an answer from me. You've got this incredible family archive. Why don't you give the archive, or a digitized version of the archive, to a museum, and then scholars can form a view as to the decency or otherwise, or the criminality of your father. I say he's a mass murderer. You say he's not. Let people see the documents and form their own view. And generously and wonderfully, Horst decided, because of the film, to make the entire family archive constructed by his mother, Charlotte, and make it available to the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum in New York. And there it resides today. If you're interested, just type in Wachter Archive, Holocaust Memorial, Washington, D.C., and you will get access to every single document in the archive. And that archive became the basis for my second book, a sequel of sorts to East-West Street, Retour à Lemberg. The sequel is called The Rat Line in English and La Filière in French. I never expected this project to take the direction it did. You will find scenes in the film that are completely unexpected. I find myself standing in a field not so far from Lemberg, Lviv, watching Ukrainians dressed in Waffen-SS uniforms gallivanting around the hills. There's one scene in particular that sticks with me and that illustrates the difference between the sort of lawyer-writer on the one hand and the filmmaker on the other hand. As we were filming the scene and speaking with various individuals dressed in Waffen-SS uniforms, Horst spots an old SS car in the distance, and he's interested. He makes his way over to the car. He's interrupted by an SS guy, a guy in an SS uniform, who wants to hand over a gun. Horst declines to take it, but he's got his eye on the car. And as he ambles over to the car, I'm thinking to myself, oh no, he's going to get into the back of the car just as his father would have done. Please don't do that, Horst, because you're going to completely lose the audience in the film. David told me a year or two later, after the film had come out, that he watched the same scene with a completely different eye. He saw Horst ambling towards the car, and he said to himself, internally, didn't share it with me, please get into the car. Please sit in the back of the car just as your father would have done. You're going to watch this film and you'll form your own view about these two remarkable individuals. Neither has any responsibility for what their father has done. But each of them, both of them, lives with the legacy of a father who was directly implicated in the killings, the unlawful killings, the murder of hundreds of thousands of people, Jews and Poles and others. And both men live with that burden. I had never thought about the story from that side because I come, as you will see in the film, from a different side of the story. And since I have come to know them and remain in touch with both of them, now many years later, it's a source of great privilege for me that I have come to know them and gained a far better understanding about what it means to live with the legacy of a father who has been involved in mass murder on an industrial scale. It is almost unimaginable to me to conceive of what it is to be the son of such a person. Anyway, you will form your own view about what you are about to see. It's complex, the range of emotions that you will feel, but I think it is for each of you to form your own conclusions and your own views. It was a privilege for me to be involved in the making of the film. I feel privileged to know Niklas and Horst, and as I said, I remain in good contact with both of them. And as an act of reconciliation, I think that says a great deal. I should not quite say enjoy the film, because I don't think it's really that kind of film, but I might say it will make you think and reflect on issues of great complexity that raise universal themes that touch each of us wherever we are in the world, and that's one of the reasons the film has reached out and touched so many people. Thank you so much for watching this film, and I express the deep thanks also of my dear friend David Evans, film director, whose film this truly is. Thank you.